All right, broker moment.
Oh man, I am so excited. Let me steal your flipper switcher, if I may. Oh yeah. You know what? There's power when it comes to you have the clicker. That's why I have to have it. So I'm just giving you grief. There's a lot of noise out there. I was hoping to share some of these last week. So all of these are articles literally that came out last week, Tuesday, but it hasn't changed a whole lot. It's really funny how the news sources tend to recycle stuff over and over. There's a lot of things that are going to be vying for your attention, especially this time of year. So what's the top tech you absolutely can't live without? If you have needs, if you're looking for something, set aside time, block it out and do it. But don't spend a whole day wasted not working. The other one, appeals court weighs the DOJ push to reopen the NAR commission rule probe. Oh my gosh, they're still not done. 80% of first-time home buyers say they'll need a gift to buy again. Okay, that's hard. Americans hate their jobs. Real estate pros don't have to. You know, do you see the direction that the news can take us? I put this in just on purpose. Next week, Friday will be the shortest day of the year. Depression is setting in and people struggle. And there are folks that do seriously struggle with seasonal depression. My whole thought is it's cold. I think Angie had the right idea, hot chocolate bar. You know, enjoy time at home when you're at home, and during the daylight hours, get yourself to work, do something. But anyway, shortest day. And guess what? Starting on the 23rd, 2 days before Christmas, the days are getting longer. It's awesome. It is Christmas time, and it's Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and any other holidays. I have 2 birthdays that we celebrate this month for grandchildren. It's awesome, but don't let those things completely destroy your plans. So a wise guy once had on his office door is, I'm going to give Bart Anthony the credit. Your dreams only work when you do. And that's the truth. So get to work. And that's my whole purpose. Just like, man, have fun. This is a great business. How many closings did we have this last week? It looked like we had, what, 25 or 30? People are still buying and selling homes. People are still doing it. And then you'll never be happier than you are grateful. Look for reasons to be grateful. Look for the gratitude. Look for the good every day, because there's enough people that will try and pull you down with the, here it is, Americans hate their jobs stories, but don't be one of those. So I love this. I actually love that quote. You'll never be happier than you are grateful. Anyway, that's all I have today. So let's have fun.
All right, so we're going to start with a video. We're going to watch this market snapshot. Who watches the snapshots that KW puts together? Perfect. That's why we're going to watch it together. So write down your top takeaways and realize you need to build the muscle of being able to effectively communicate to your clients what's happening in the real estate market. Like Dean just pointed out, there's a lot of noise that your clients are hearing as well, right? Around the economy, around what's happening in the real estate market. And you need to become the trusted advisor that's actually providing true education around what's happening, okay? The truth. Oftentimes, if you look at the news, are they in it for the business of spreading the truth? Is that what CNN and Fox and all these news stations are in the business for?
No.
No, they're in the business of attention, right? What grabs attention? Fear, right? So just be aware of that you should not rely on the news to be the trusted advisor for your clients. You should take that role. So the muscle that you want to build is being able to hear, right, key insights, and then being able to recite those things or educate your clients based off of those things. So this is one of those trusted sources that you can be able to take in 10 minutes a month and be able to have some really good data points to be able to talk to your clients about. Now, this is going to be on a national scale, but the same terminologies apply here locally. And so you'll want to find the data that applies here to Utah, but the same way that they're educating you around the market, you can go ahead and use that same framework for teaching your clients. So we'll watch this, take some notes, and then we'll get into an activity afterwards.
Hi, y'all. Welcome back from Thanksgiving. I'm here again with Ruben to go through our market snapshot for this month. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss anything as we continue to do this every month going forward. So, Ruben, we're going to talk about NAR numbers and a few other things. What's the most important thing we're going to take away from today?
Yeah, so I think we're going to look at, the NAR statistics and understand that, we think housing market is close to like the bottom right now, right? We saw some pretty low home sales numbers last month. But then we've got some good news. Inflation data is looking up. We'll talk a little bit about that. And that's leading to mortgage rates starting to decline now. So we've got, a light at the end of the tunnel in a sense. And we can talk a little bit about like what that means as we go into the next, the new year.
Love it. So there's going to be some good news. Let's start with I wouldn't call it bad news. It's what we probably expected to be happening right now. What does NAR tell us happened in the month of October?
Yeah. So last month we saw, seasonally adjusted home sales fall to about 3.8 million sales. That was the lowest in over a decade, right?
Yeah.
Coming off another month that was also over a decade long low. It was expected, right? Like we saw mortgage rates rise up to almost 8% in October. They've since come down some. Surprisingly, home prices though were up again 3.5%.
Yeah, which is just a little crazy, right? We talk about this every time, and it still baffles me, and I'm sure baffles a lot of our viewers. We have low inventory, high mortgage rates. We sort of would expect that the high mortgage rates would also help put pressure on pricing. But as you said last time, Ruben, no matter how low our inventory is, if the amount of buyers for that same number of homes to be sold is still tight, we're going to continue to see prices rise. And that's really what we're still seeing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We've got like really low inventory levels. Even though mortgage rates were high, there was still enough demand to keep home prices rising. And we see a lot of regional variation there. If you look at the Gulf Coast, we're seeing closer to a balanced market. Home prices are either flat to declining. Some of them are slightly up, from 2%, closer to 5 months of inventory in most of those states. Where if you look at the Northeast, you're talking sub 3 months, sub 4 months. And much larger price increases in 4 to 6% range in some places there right now. The Midwest is sort of in the middle between that, as well as in the West Coast is kind of a mix. But in general, like it's just there's a lot of different markets out there right now because of the way these interest rates are affecting different places.
Sure. It makes sense, right? I mean, certain areas are going to have higher demand than others. Certain areas are affected or not affected by changes in the local economy, which we always want to remind people that real estate is a local business run by local professionals. And so if you're a real estate agent watching this right now, definitely be up on your numbers, understand what's happening in your local economy, and buyers and sellers should be talking to someone who understands those numbers, because no matter what we say about the sales, there's always the right time to buy the right piece of real estate. And Gary says that every time on stage, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. So knowing that we are where we are with inventory, with the number of sales, which trend down typically because of seasonality, right, Ruben?
Right.
We've got some other factors at play that are actually starting to look a little positive and might help us have a little happier outlook on what 2024 might be bringing us. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the biggest thing right now is obviously inflation. We've been talking about it for the last 2 years, and it's starting to get back into what we consider more normal levels. Like last month, they reported a 3.2% overall consumer price index level, right? What that basically means, like year over year prices compared to last year, 3.2%. Our goal is 2%, right? So we're getting pretty close. If you look at it less food and energy, right? That core number, we're still at like 4%, which is a little bit high, but that's a lot to do with like one specific factor, which is shelter. If you pull shelter, which is real estate in some extent, right, out of the mix, we're really very close to 2%. CPI less shelter right now is actually 1.5%, but that's got some of those energy price benefits baked into it from gas prices going down. Core would be in the mid 2s. So in reality, most inflation is where it needs to be, with the exception of shelter.
Gotcha. And so we talked about this last time too. Really, the rest of the economy seems to be doing pretty well, and inflation is coming down the way the government would like to see it come down, except in our world, in the world of real estate as part of this shelter conversation. And part of that has been these pesky mortgage rates that we always talk about. What's happening with that, and how do we think that might affect things going forward?
Yeah. So the good news is that mortgage rates are coming down. We saw 10-year treasury start to trend down the last couple of months. That's good news. It was basically a reaction to, the lower inflation data, the fact that the Fed chose not to raise rates in November, and we don't think they're going to raise them in December either. So that's good news. And it's a good news that the market reacted that way. There was a lot of uncertainty over whether long-term rates like mortgage rates and treasury rates were actually trend down if we saw good inflation numbers, and they did. So that helps us kind of, as we look forward in the future, anticipate that as those numbers continue to improve, we can expect to see some continued decline in those rates. Right? We saw, last month rates peaked right around 8%.
Right. Yeah.
We're already back down to about 7.25% right now, which is,
Much better.
much better. And we think we could be getting close, back into the sixes potentially as we move forward, which would be excellent. The Fed's in a tough place because they've got like a weird catch-22 with inflation. We talked about that shelter figure, but when you think about how real estate fits into that, they're looking at like these monthly numbers they call like owner equivalent rent and then actual rents paid by people. Well, high interest rates don't make rents go down typically.
Right.
And the owner equivalent rent is a little bit of a weird thing because you're looking at like what people would be paying to rent the house they live in, not what they actually pay on their mortgage rates. So chances are right now, given what mortgage rates were when everyone refinanced over the last couple of years, that number is actually probably lower than what we're measuring. So there's a strong argument that like inflation's much closer than we really think it is to the goal, which is good because it's going to stop the Fed from, increasing rates further. But it also supports the argument that like the Fed could maybe do something to help the housing market out a bit.
Yeah.
So we'll see. That conversation, I think, is going to be ongoing. We talked about, in a previous video, the letter that NAR sent asking them to intervene. There's a little bit more conversation about that kind of thing happening now. So as we move forward, we'll see if like that keeps coming up.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, Ruben, bringing back a conversation we also had a few months back, we showed a pie graph, which stated that the majority of folks out there have these 3 to 4% mortgages, and only a small amount of the mortgages out there are above that 6% rate. And so what you're saying is that the information might be a little bit skewed the way that we typically measure because of how drastically different our mortgage rates were just a year and a half ago, which makes sense, right? And hopefully it sounds like there's, as you said, light at the end of the tunnel, that there are some things moving in the right direction to help our industry as a whole start to also move in a little bit different direction as far as sales go.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think like the big story right now is a lot of the pressure that was pushing mortgage rates up seems to be dissipating. We don't know how long it's going to take them to come down or how far they're going to come down, but we know that like things seem to at least be normalizing right now. And we've seen them start to decline, which is good news all around for our industry.
Yeah, great news. So what we'll be looking out for is continued pressure on mortgage rates. We're going to look out for what's happening in our local inventory. And that's really going to help inform us on where prices might go. But one of the key questions that we get asked all the time, Ruben, and I'm sure most of the real estate professionals out there get this question as well. And that is, I'm waiting, or I think that prices are going to drop. What would you say to that?
I think that would be like a challenging strategy right now, because right now we've already seen prices turn positive again with 8% mortgage rates, right?
Right.
Inventory right now is low. There's not any evidence that there's any large amounts of building or anything that's going to come on that would push prices back down. So if we see mortgage rates starting to decline, prices are already positive. There's not a lot of scenarios that end in, a 15 to 20% reduction in home prices in the US, aside from some kind of massive downturn in the economy, which we don't see a lot of evidence right now. We've seen the labor market and unemployment start to kind of show a few signs of like loosening, but for the most part, we're still at historically low levels of unemployment in the country, right? So there's really not a lot of signs that we're on the precipice of something that's going to push prices down that way. Now, stuff happens, right? Like it's always possible there's some black swan event lurking out there that could push us into some kind of severe recession. But I think banking on that as your home buying strategy is probably not a great plan.
Yeah. And
Okay, I'm going to cut it there. What's your take? What did you catch from that? Now's a good time to buy a home.
I mean, now, the present is always.
Always. Yeah. Rob, and two things.
Going down, really.
Say that again.
The prices really haven't been going down.
Prices haven't been going down.
And the interesting thing about it is.
Oh, for those on Zoom.
Sorry. Is it on?
Is it okay? Yeah, prices haven't really been going down. And the interesting thing about it is there are people out there that are saying that we're going to have a big recession next year. But if that happens, then the only thing the Feds can do to counteract that is to drop interest rates, which are probably going to push prices back even higher. So, waiting to buy is not a good strategy at this point.
Yeah, and it's again, if we look at the reality is it's up to you to educate your clients properly, right, on this process. Most of them do not have a reliable, trusted source for the economy outside of you. So you've got to be thinking with that mindset of how am I communicating this consistently and effectively to my clients? And a lot of it too is about deciphering the data, because oftentimes if you just put up, snapshots of like trends, they may not really understand, well, what does that mean for me? How does that actually impact people who are buying, selling, or investing? It may impact all three of those different categories differently. So you being able to explain to them how that actually impacts their buying or selling decision is important.
I love the comment. I'm loud.
Those on Zoom.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I love the black swan comment because it's like you meet people, and especially very educated people will always try to grab a hold of this. Like, well, what about this scenario? What about COVID? What about, and it's like, yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
There's always a scenario that could play out that's unexpected that we've never seen before, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
But I love that. Are you banking on that? Is that your decision making? That random, unknown, very never even happened in the history of 100 years. But the data doesn't lie. And it is actually kind of surprising to see where you go, wow, home values are actually holding and increasing, even with high interest rates.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
Keep on buying.
COVID, was that a black swan event? Did it completely destroy our real estate market? For many people, that was the best, it turned into their best couple of years, right? So you really never know how it's going to impact it. But one of the things that you can point to is the data of inventory, right? Where are we at on inventory specifically in Utah in comparison to how many people are migrating to Utah, and then also just new households being generated or created, shows that we are probably going to be in this lack of inventory for the next 5 to 7 years, right? If not longer. And so keeping that into perspective is so key. We're going to jump forward to an activity. There's two things that I really want you to write down, okay? There's one skill set and one system that can completely change the trajectory of your business in 2024. There's one skill set, one system that can completely change the trajectory of your business in 2024. The reality is that repetition is the mother of all skill, okay? Who's heard the book Outliers by Gladwell? So in that book, he talks about some very successful individuals in different areas, and he points towards one key input or metric that he feels like has a big impact on their success. What is that? He calls it a specific rule, for those who've read this book. What rule is outlined in Outliers?
Well, I don't know specifically the rule, but he talks about that practice, that consistent putting in the hours.
Yep. And there's a certain number of hours that he points out.
10,000. But
Yes.
the difference between, and he uses musicians, and just FYI, the difference of a high school musical teacher, about 4,000 hours compared to a maestro at 10,000 hours. And so that distance, that even if you have talent, when you start to put in the more consistent hours, it far surpasses talent. Talent will get you to that about 2,000-ish hours to 2,500. But anything beyond that, it shows that skill can be learned, and it will surpass talent ultimately.
Yeah. And if you look at individuals like Tiger Woods, you look at the Michael Jordan, Steph Curry, you look at all these individuals who have achieved massive success, most of them actually, it's come through repetition, right? It's come through the consistency over time. And so the skill set that you want to develop in this space, if you're going to be a market expert, you want to understand data, right? What's happening economically in the state of Utah, and in educating your clients with that data, empowering your clients with that data. That's the skill set, okay? Understanding the data, what metrics move our market, and how does that impact clients who are buying, selling, or investing, okay? Communicating that. So that's the skill set that you want to develop and really master in 2024. The system that you want to use to really build, I think might have a slide for this one. Okay, we'll go with this. So here's the system that you want to focus on. If you consistently deliver value, everything will work out as it should. So yes, there's a lot of noise that's going on. And at the same time, if you just say, I'm going to stay consistent with delivering value, not your take on value, okay? It's what your clients actually say is valuable. So you want to pay attention to that. is fall in love with your clients or your customers, not necessarily your own processes or the things that you like to do. Fall in love with what they want, and deliver a consistent touch program that gives them what they want. Okay. And we're going to go through this process, do a little exercise. I'm going to throw some music on. And for 5 minutes, what I'm going to invite you to do is there's a set of questions in front of you. So we're going to go through this 5-minute touch plan audit. This is what the sheet looks like. If you don't have it, raise your hand and we'll bring you one. Okay, Rob will get you one. So it's going to go through 7 different questions about your current touch program that you have installed into your business. And what this should do is just bring some awareness to the gaps, right? Where can improvement happen? And then we're going to go ahead and talk about this in groups. So go ahead and just take 5 minutes to write down the answers to that question, and then we'll get into the second piece of this. Those on Zoom, will drop this in the chat so you can open it digitally. So those will be on the chat. All right, let's bring it back. So I'm going to go through a process, and this I think can really help kind of just accelerate the quality of your touch program in 2024. And if you've already got a solid touch program, that's awesome. The question is, how do I enhance it? How do I improve it, right? How do I make it better? But if you feel like, how many of you feel like you haven't had a really defined and intentional touch program installed in your business in the past? Okay, about half of you. Cool, thanks for the honesty. So if you say, hey, what's the one thing that I can change for my business in 2024 that have the greatest impact? It's going to come down to this system. Okay, if you study the MREA, the one system it points back to is a 36 or a consistent touch program, right? If you look at the most successful agents across the country. And so I know that one of my challenges was always just a roadblock around creating the touch program. And so we'll go through this together, but I want to just get some quick ahas. What stood out to you as you were auditing your own 36 touch? Good or bad? What stood out to you? You don't do your calls, okay? Did I hear you say there's room for improvement? Is that what you're saying? That's a good way of putting it. Awesome. What else?
No organization.
No organization? Okay.
Figure out how social media plays into the touch thing, because you don't really know if the touch thing is certain people or what.
Yeah, if you want like the modern agent perspective on it, is like the 36 touches outdated. It really should be like 72 touches when you take into account like social media and stuff like that. So it's adapted, and that could be a range of like direct messages or comments on somebody's post, stuff like that. If you're just doing a like, may not get the impact that you want, right? But yeah, there's some different agents out there who social media is a completely different addition on top of their 36 touch plan that they do. So great. Spencer?
I guess the perfection of the wording and creating email with pictures or video, like the content.
Yeah.
Seems kind of and just for one of those emails or one touch point. So if there's something where it's like automated where I can just, put send, that'd be great.
Wouldn't that be nice if KW Westfield put something like that together for you every single month? I'm glad we do already. Nice thing is we do have that newsletter ready to go.
Sending out something to clients, it's not from the guy.
For sure. For sure.
So I want to be personable and here's this copy paste.
Yes. Yeah, and the cool thing is, if you do use our market updates that we put together, it has a snapshot of the market. What you want to do is add your MOFR or add your spin, your touch on it to personalize it. But if nothing more, doing something is better than nothing, right? So if you're not sending emails out at all because of that perception of like, well, it's not perfect, I get that.
Like 2 hours per Instagram. That's pretty ridiculous. But I have a hard time, wanting to.
Quality, right? And just for the sake of time, I won't dig into this, but the question to ask yourself is, what is that need for perfection costing you in the long run, right? And I'm sure I'm not speaking, I am only speaking to Spencer, right? You guys know this, okay? Nobody else does this.
I know it does cost me sing the sun. It's like, how do
Yeah,
I go
but
to a
Ryan.
therapist?
And he did not, for those of you who went to the class, and showed us how he does his newsletters, it is not, he's not worried about, he finally got over the perfection.
Yes,
Time, when you see what he's accomplished by starting the work, he's on fire. Like,
Yes.
he has closing up the closing.
yeah.
So,
The-
and he got over that, and he showed us, and I still looked at that and thought, that's not perfect, I couldn't send that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And the funny thing is, if you look at the top agents, their stuff is actually not perfect.
Yeah.
If you went and looked at it, you'd be surprised. It's just they're consistent.
That's the whole thing, is, and you'll get.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yes.
You're consistent.
You consistently progress.
Started, you'll get better, you'll get better, you'll get better, you'll get better.
Yep.
And, well,
Yep.
this-
How fast are you at tying your shoes today compared to when you were 6 years old? Okay. That's why you got the slip-ons. Perfect.
Honestly, the first time he's like, I'm so embarrassed if my family sees it and they think I'm stupid, they're gonna judge me. And that's probably, what
Cameron?
care about is what my husband and the kids think, and they think it's cool, and like Angie said, like what she told me, she goes, half the time the words are on my face. Well, good for you that you got the words on your face. I think you're called. My kids are proud of me that I got reels up. I mean, they were clapping and applauding that I was cool enough to get a reel
I'm a
up.
millennial, and I'm like, I'm
But-
supposed to know all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Try each time might be a little less lame, and I'm like, pretty, and all I care about when people are seeing them, and I actually have reels, and each time they get a little better, and if it takes me more than like 20 minutes, then I ditch that and go do something else, because that means I wasted so much time. So don't try so hard, just be you, and get up there and talk or something, you're cute, the girls will look at you, and they'll be like, he's
I
handsome.
got a wife, baby.
Just talk.
Yes. Yeah, start small. Yep. Yep.
So I was just gonna say, a majority of people aren't even gonna read your newsletter, but your name being in their email is gonna remind them that you are there the next you do real estate.
And one of the realities, I think, going back to that start small is really the process with all of these. What I'm gonna do is throw this up just for the sake of time. Again, go back through the audit and really ask yourself those questions, but you want to come out with number 7. What's the one thing that you're gonna do to upgrade your touch plan in 2024? Now, all of you have this sheet in front of you. This is an example touch program.
Wait, yeah, you're still.
Only the cool people have this one, so sorry.
No, but just.
Joking. No, you should have this other sheet. So
We don't.
if not, they're in the back, or actually they're right here. Just pass this around. Thank you, Jeanette. So what you're going to see is on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, you're going to see a blank one. That's the one that you want to fill in for 2024 is what's your plan? And what I would say is that don't feel a need for perfection. You don't need to fill in every single square on this sheet, okay? What the focus is saying at least once I have one touch guaranteed per month that I'm going to do. Now, ideally, you have an email newsletter that's going out every single month. On this left-hand column, you can see that. So a market update, explaining what's happening in the market. And then you decide, well, what is going to be my touch point number 2 for that month? Is it going to be my quarterly calls? Well, that should be your touch for sure for everybody as well, right? Going through a third of your database every month is the focus, okay? And then just kind of rotating through, well, what are those unique value adds that I'm going to do each month throughout the year? If you know that you're going to do a client event in May and in October, pre-program that onto your touch plan. So those months are already taken care of, right? And then start filling in the gaps of, well, what else would I like to do to deliver value to my database? And then on the far hand side, what you'll see is the MOFR section. And those of you who went to boot camp, we talked about how you want to have consistent MOFRs, right? Make an offer for immediate response that you can be thrown out on social media. That's your email newsletter. You can use those when you're calling clients and saying, hey, by the way, I have this resource. Would you like to take advantage of it? And so your MOFRs is you just having kind of a rolling list of things that you can throw out into the marketplace to get people to jump on those opportunities, okay? So this sheet has it completely filled out, showing you what it could look like. But what you want to do is go through and fill out your own of what you're going to commit to, okay? Start small. I would at least have your quarterly calls and your market update email, if nothing else. That right there will be a game changer for your business. If you're at the next level, want to add to it, that's where you'll get creative and say, okay, what other touch points do I want to add to my touch plan or program for 2024? Okay. Questions, thoughts, or ahas as we wrap this session up? Simple, complex? How do you feel about this system? Yes. Thank you, Robin.
Well, it's related to this, but one of the best things that I've done is I've gone in and done my tagging. And that has been extremely beneficial to me so that I can do this better, you know, and so just taking that time and blocking it out and saying I'm going to spend an hour on command and getting it together, whatever, I think is at least for me, that's critical so that it makes this whole process smoother.
Yeah. No one ever has the excuse of it's Christmas time, I don't want to call people, right? Nobody ever has that, or it's too busy, I've got family outings and Christmas parties and stuff like that. This is the perfect time to work on your business. Okay. So make sure that you're spending that time. I would encourage blocking 2 hours sometime in the next 2 weeks to just define your touch plan. What happens is when you plan this out, you have so much more energy, momentum, and it clears out your mind of like, well, what do I do? You probably spend far more than 2 hours throughout the year wondering, what should I do? Probably spend that a day, right? So if you just do it in advance, you actually save so much more time throughout the year. Okay, so highly encouraged to use this, integrate it into your business, and you'll see way greater results in 2024. Cool. Any questions as we wrap up? Awesome. Thanks to our lunch sponsor again. Enjoy and have a great week.